our actual cities, I'll start with my favorite place to buy. I'm going to do it chronologically because it's probably the best way to do it in terms of my favorite place to buy than my least favorite place to buy at the moment. So where I'll start with is Melbourne. Now, I was mentioning previously there was developers and flippers slowly coming back, but they're genuinely back now in the market. They are actually back in the market. And on top of that, there's extreme demand from Sydney buyers. So that's kind of what's happening. Along with that, because of it, you've got some suburbs breaking all-time records and stock levels also falling to their lowest levels in 7 to 8 years. Now, the peak of the Melbourne market was late 2017, early 2018. It's kind of been fairly flat since then. So I mean, there's lots of parts here of Melbourne, really, where you've got quite a few buyers coming into the market, especially wealthier ones from Sydney that are starting to push it up. Now, because the government is idiotic with their land tax and it's pushed a lot of investors out of the market, the vacancy, this is one city that is largely driving the fall of vacancy rates. So they're continuing to fall because a lot of the people selling in key suburbs are investors, particularly for houses. And then what's happening is you've got mostly owner-occupiers scooping up the land, which, don't get me wrong, well done to them, but really the investors should be holding because there's not enough stock and there's continuing more demand, especially from a lot of people from overseas net migration coming in, which then is increasing rents because there's not enough stock for the homes that's in the market. So Melbourne is genuinely a city that's actually turning the part in that sense. So not only that too, but there's great opportunities in flipper style homes within 15 k's of CBD. So Melbourne are like to Sydney. A lot of the people who are professionals who live near the city are the laziest shits you'll ever meet. They don't want to lift a finger. They just want everything handed to them and done for them. But if you're someone who doesn't mind getting your hands dirty, spending 20, 30K on a property, I mean, some of the opportunities here are unbelievable. I mean, you could probably spend 20, 30K and expect to make 100 grand within a year here easily, in terms of the asset value, or probably maybe even more. Like if the market does what I think it's going to do, you'll probably make more if you flip the home as well. So that's where opportunity lies in Melbourne. And there's been some very strong results in Braybrook, Carlton and Newport. So Braybrook had a record-breaking sale of above 1.8 million recently. Carlton's had some above 3. Newport's had a number above 2, both on the seaside and the western side of the station. So all of those markets are in demand. I've been talking about a lot of these suburbs for a long time, so it's good to see what I've been talking about actually happen as I said it would happen. But that's Melbourne. Let's get into Geelong. So really where we're at with Geelong is there's incredibly strong demand at the bottom of the market. And what's kind of happening here is you've got a lot of interstate buyers, agents and buyers throwing unconditional offers well over the price guide. They don't know what they're doing. So if you see them do that, don't get in a bidding war with them. I don't do that with my clients. I go for stuff that I know is reasonably priced. And we try to secure it at a good price as well. So, I mean, don't fall for that shit. It is not a good thing to do. Don't do it if you're looking to buy in Geelong. Price points of sub 50K are largely having the largest demand, and days on market are falling drastically. Stock levels are becoming very low. So anything sub 650K here is ridiculous in demand at the moment. I'm expecting nothing in the suburbs that I like that are sub that at the moment to be there within 12 months time, unless it's falling apart and you'd have to do, hundreds of thousands of dollars worth of work to it. So that's kind of what's going on. Although there are good opportunities in some of the best suburbs of Geelong. So I'll give you an example. Newtown at the moment is actually fairly flat, and that is pretty much the wealthiest suburb of all of Geelong. It's been that way for probably 100 years to give you an idea. So there's some good opportunities, some very wealthy pockets of Geelong at the moment, particularly Newtown is a good example of it. Strong results in Newcomb, Carrara and Herne Hill. Look, Newcomb's had sales towards the $700,000 mark now, which you would be picking up in the mid-5s last year at the same time. Carrara's had plenty break the $600,000 mark, where I had clients buying in the mid to late 4s last year. Herne Hill's had a number of sales above $1 million, and the median at the moment says 700,000. So Herne Hill's median isn't 700,000; it's about 830 to 850. It's just the data's slow. So that's where strong results are happening. I expect Herne Hill probably within the next 2 to 3 years to break $1 million, mind you. I expect Newcomb probably to break $1 million within the next 5 to 10 years. That's what's coming. So that's my summary of the Geelong property market. Let's get into Newcastle. Now, I did say previously there was strong demand in some areas. The whole city now has strong demand and there's next to no bargains left. Okay? And now no longer is it an 800K real city. There's very few properties under or around the 800K mark. It's genuinely a 900K plus city. And it's because a lot of your inner suburbs are breaking suburb records, and street records. So what's happening is you're just getting the spillover effect happening. So it's very hard to find anything that's sub 900K now that's anything decent to buy. If it is a sub 900K, there's probably some reason it is sub 900K. So that's what's going on here at the moment. Strong sales in family pockets, and there's some good opportunities in flipper style, well-located properties. So it's actually hard to even say that at the moment, because even the flipper style properties, people are catching on to that. And a lot of people in Newcastle now are bidding them up to a reasonable price, and they're just flipping them, selling them extraordinary levels, or just refinancing them and pulling a shit ton of equity out. But those homes, especially in family pockets, are very strong in demand. Good luck finding any decent deal here without someone like me or someone that knows everyone that can source it for you and actually bid the right way to get it done. If you show up to an auction here and it's in the right pocket, it's going to go at least 10% above the range. And don't believe what agents say. It's going to be at least 10% above the range. And for people that are watching this episode that are trying to do that, I'm sure you can attest to it. People know that is the truth. There's been some very strong sales in Hamilton, Adamstown and Mayfield East. So the eastern part of Mayfield East, sales above 1.5 million. Adamstown's had plenty above 1.5 million. Hamilton is even having sales above 1 to 1.1 million, even with the agencies who are shit at selling properties. So if that's happening, imagine what good agencies sell it for. So that's really what's going on in Newcastle. It's not really a market for the weak anymore. There's a lot of very strong sales. So that's my summary of the Newcastle market. Let's get into the Central Coast. So demand is continuing to increase. So as I said previously, demand was increasing in all locations, Central Coast. That's continuing. Some areas are quite hot. So well-located infrastructure / facility properties are doing well, particularly sub 850K and sub $1 million in certain locations doing very well. So anything that's sub 850K anywhere on the Central Coast is doing well, but just be careful where you buy. In that sense, sub $1 million, the southern side of Tuggerah Lake and anything on around Gosford is quite good for detached houses. Good opportunity in some of the middle tier suburbs, and opportunity to snag homes with subdivision granny flat potential within 15 minutes of the beach. So, mid-tier suburbs are like what I said, southern side of Tuggerah Lake, or around like Canmore, Lake Haven, surrounding suburbs of that. Very good opportunity in those sorts of suburbs. Most of them are on 450 plus, most even above 500. So most of them are easily doable with a granny flat, or even potentially a duplex or two townhouses. So that's kind of what's going on the Central Coast. Those areas are doing very well. I'm expecting some record-breaking sales to happen here as well. And at the moment, there's been some very strong sales in Canmore, Lake Haven, and Avoca Beach. Avoca Beach is going to have some sales above 10 million soon. Lake Haven and Canmore are having plenty of sales above 850 at the moment. So I had clients buying there late last year for 750,000 to give you an idea. So those don't exist anymore, not for the same quality of asset. I did have a client recently pick one up in a neighbouring suburb for a flat 750, which was an unbelievably good deal. But that doesn't exist anymore. I was just very lucky to get it done. So anyway, that's really what's going on the Central Coast. It is like a second beachy kind of Sydney part, but it's going to continue to happen. So that's my summary of the Central Coast. Let's get into Sydney. So demand is strong, but largely mixed throughout locations. So there's strong demand, particularly from developers in certain parts of the city. So because of that, there's raw undersupply of land in certain parts of the city as well. Now, some parts, for example, of the Lower North Shore actually are fairly even market, and there's actually good opportunity there. Though demand in especially the parts where the transport is and all the infrastructure is, that has good accessibility to jobs, those areas are very tight in land supply and supply, because developers are snapping everything up. You got a lot of them going and knocking on doors of multiple people and just offering ridiculous sums of money to buy their home. So that's going to continue to happen. There's near record numbers of attendees at rental inspections along lifestyle corridors. So I'm sure everyone would have seen that video on the internet of a two-bedder in Bronte with about 100 people looking. That's what happens in your warmer months of Sydney, your daylight saving months of Sydney. You get people all the time rocking up, trying to go and live in these areas, so that's set to continue. What I'd say though is well-located homes now, most well-located homes are now pricing at close to $2 million or more, and trophy homes are in strong demand. So, I mean, try to find a well-located home in Sydney for under $2 million is very hard. There are a few that are still between around 1.5 to 2, but that's going to continue to increase substantially because there's a lot of demand for that. Trophy homes are actually in massive demand as well. So when that happens, you know the Sydney market is due to pick up because the whole market has a thing called the spillover effect. So it's starting to slowly turn in Sydney. It is in the latter part of its stabilisation phase, but it's starting to turn. Where really lately there's been strong sales is in Belmore, Lilyfield and Fairlight. You can argue there's some others, but particularly in these locations, Belmore's had a number above 2 million, Lilyfield's had a number above 3 million, Fairlight's had a number close to the $4 million mark. And those are all strong areas of consideration, all very well located, all have something about them that I really like as well. So no surprises, this is what's going on in the Sydney market. Let's get into Wollongong. So Wollongong is probably lagging a little bit. It's still a fairly stable market, although there's strong results towards a more affordable price point. So when I say that, I mean particularly sub $1 million and sub 1.3 in certain areas. Also, what I should say on that is transport developers are largely beginning to come back into the market. There's been some very strong sales among new duplex style developments, and town centre land is becoming increasingly more scarce. So the low to medium density housing code that's just recently come in and the transport orientated plan are largely affecting this. There are a lot of suburbs here that are affected by that are largely pushing very strong prices. And because of that, the land is becoming very scarce. But not only that too, the well-located suburbs have some very well-built duplex-style developments that are selling for easily above $2 million each. So, I mean, you wouldn't think that's achievable really in Wollongong, but it's starting to become the norm in a lot of parts of well-located suburbs now in Wollongong, because you got a lot of people from the Sutherland Shire, particularly the beachy suburbs, that now are starting to move down there, particularly between Coaldale and probably I'd say Fairy Meadow. They're very popular among those people. So duplexes there are selling for quite a bit of money as well. Really, the great opportunities are in the mid-tier northern suburbs. So, as I said, it's probably not as far as Coaldale, but it's probably from, I'd say, Mount Ousley, Kirraville, right up to probably about Woonona. There's some very good opportunities there. That if you want to buy in Wollongong, that's where you got the budget for that. That's probably where I'd be looking to buy. They're very, very good opportunities. Really lately, though, there's been some very strong results, particularly around the CBD and south of it. So Shell Harbour's done well. Southern Wollongong suburbs on the northern, should I say, shoreline of Lake Illawarra have done well, and the surrounding CBD suburbs. So Mount St Thomas, which is right near Illawarra Grammar, has done very well. There's above $1.5 million sales quite regularly here now. Port Kembla as well. So it's hard to find a place in Port Kembla under $1 million now, but there's plenty towards like Dover Drive and Hills 60 there. They're selling above 2 now. So, I mean, I was saying Port Kembla was a very good buy back a few months ago in Wollongong, but I don't know if it still is because it'd be very hard to pick up a very well-priced property. Like, I could probably find some for you, but I mean, not everyone would know how to do it and not everyone knows the agents in the area. But really, there's some good opportunity in Wollongong. I'd say if you do want to buy there, especially to live or invest, I mean, there's some good opportunity at the moment, especially if you've got anything above $850K to play with. So that's my update for the Wollongong market. Let's get into Hobart. So Hobart at the moment is a fairly flat market. There's pretty much an even amount of buyers and sellers, though it is starting to change in some parts of the city. So your fundamentally good suburbs around the CBD and around the waterfront precincts of the CBD are doing very well. What I'd say here, though, is rents are starting to rise again. Now, there's just not enough rentals available here. There's just not enough. So, I mean, that's kind of what's going on in Hobart in terms of the rental market. What you'll see, though, is the top-end suburbs are beginning to see demand starting to re-emerge, and it's largely affordable for most of the resident population and interstate population. So most people in a fundamentally good suburb of Hobart can easily afford their mortgage and more, so they can afford to push it up. But people are slowly looking at Hobart as like, oh, this is a good place to invest, or this is a, place where I can easily afford and have a family. So you're going to get that to continue to happen. I mean, I think Hobart will be a little bit more flat for a number of years yet, but if you were to look at the next 10 years, I think the next 5 will be fairly flat. It might pick up a little bit, but your preceding years 6 to 10 will do quite well. What I'll say here though is there's some great yielding deals within 15 minutes of CBD. It's not uncommon to get a 4.5 to 5% yielding deal in Hobart, believe it or not. So some very good deals in that region. Strong results still, I wouldn't say strong, it should say probably solid in Bellerive and West Hobart. These are two suburbs that fundamentally are very good, and you can easily justify why, they will do well long term. So, that's the Hobart market. I mean, it's doing very well. It's not doing very well. It's doing well in terms of just it's flatlining out now. So it's past its downturn trend. It's just in the mid-tier. It's probably stabilization phase, but there's some better results coming through in some of the good fundamental suburbs. So that's generally what goes on in the mid-tier of the, should I say, stabilization phase. Brisbane, strong results in some locations. Again, inner north and inner east are still showing strong results, although what I'd say is markets are starting to look frothy as the trend line is breaking in many locations. So Moreton Bay, parts of the south, parts of the Bayside of Brisbane, parts of the northern suburbs are starting to break now as well. Starting to really, the line is flattening a bit in those locations, though there is still solid demand in neighbouring bridesmaid suburbs. So if your suburbs around much more expensive suburbs, there's quite strong demand for that dwelling. What I'd say though is the rental market is tight, particularly sub $700 a week, and the job market is still doing very well. So expect your properties to rent quite easily in Brisbane if it's well located, because the economy is doing quite well and there's still just not enough homes, to be transparent with you. Like, what proves that is just go under any major bridge of Brisbane, you'll see tent set up, which is sad, but it's just, that shows you how much demand there is actually in the Brisbane market for rentals. Homes in solid school zones or close proximity to prestigious schools are doing well. So inner north, inner east, well-located homes doing well. And as you can see here, strong results in Wooloowin, Greenslopes and Cannon Hill. No surprises there. Most of those suburbs are almost bridesmaids to much more expensive suburbs. So that's the reason they're doing well. And they're very well located, close to job hubs, close to good schools. So again, that's what's happening in Brisbane, but it's a bit frothy for me at the moment. So just be wary of it. Because it's gone up so much since 29, about 6 years, it's done like 100% growth. So just be wary of that. To get into Perth, look, I love the beaches of Perth. That's just Tree Beach, South Trigg in the background, probably the best surf beach in Metro Perth. But anyway, continuing strong results in some regions, although many regions are starting to break their trend line, slightly slowing demand in many new exurbs, new estates. So, I mean, your non-fundamental areas, and what I'm talking about is your long-term resident suburbs, your ones with mainly new buyers and especially your FIFO kind of worker sort of people and people that tend to move here and there when the resources market goes down, they're starting to look very, 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 very frothy now, and their trend line genuinely, I'd say, is really, really starting to break. It is really breaking their trend line. So is it still going up? Yes, but it's starting to genuinely slow down. That's the thing. However, stock is still very tight across the wider market. So if your trend line's breaking but stock's very tight, it means when the actual stock starts to go up and your days on market increase, those areas are in quite a bit of trouble, because they'll probably have a minor correction, I'd say, and probably flatline for a longer time period than other areas. Though what I'd say is if you are in especially the north/northwestern suburbs, the fundamental long, should I say, standing resident areas, so you could probably include the inner south of Perth, then probably along the Swan out to Mossman Park, and then draw a line from probably Mount Lawley straight up kind of to Joondalup, then to Ocean Reef. Those suburbs in between there mainly, not all of them, but most of them are areas where long-term residents stay, because there's good schools, good job opportunities, and quite good lifestyle there. Those areas in some parts of Freo are quite good, so they've still got a little bit to go, to be honest, and they're probably the better looking markets. But the exurbs especially that are well out of the main CBD centres, especially the newer states, are looking very, very frothy at the moment. And really, with where there's been strong results lately is both Ocean Reef and Innaloo. So you get plenty of sales now above 1.5 million regularly happening here. So I expect them to still grow more, those suburbs, and neighbouring suburbs as well. Both of those are going to do well as well. So that's my Perth property market update for November.